Hi, welcome to Brown Girl Book Lover. I'm Leslie Ann Murray with Lara Stapleton. Today we're going to be talking about her book, The Ruin of Everything. This is my first in-person interview, so I'm really excited. In many years, you're like, who, me? Lara is my really good friend. She's a writer, she's a professor. She's a beautiful soul, and I'm really happy that I'm interviewing her. So we're gonna be talking about books, but also falling in love with each other again.
All over again. I'm very happy that you've asked me to do this, Leslie. It's an honor.
Yes, thank you. So Lara, tell us about The Ruin of Everything.
It is, let's see, short stories that I wrote over a very long period of time, like 20 years. It took me a long time to publish it, and it is very different from what I had envisioned in the first place. It's funny, some of the way that people have reacted to it is kind of exactly what I thought and exactly what I'd hoped for, but people are also seeing it as very differently from what I expected. Sometimes people think it's quite funny, and I thought only one of my stories was funny, but I guess more of it is funny than I thought. And then also people are saying it's really heavy and depressing, and I'm kind of like, but I know it's true too.
Yeah.
But I know it's true too. So
it is really, it's funny, it's really heavy, it's very depressing. But as I was saying again, I think, like when you read certain stories and it talks about depression, and it then makes you feel like, oh, now I'm depressed. Right? I don't think it does that. I think because we are removed from the character, because the writing is so distant, so we see this emotion and we're able to stand back and really analyze the characters. And I think it really talks about loneliness and abandonment, and what happens, how we have to struggle to lift ourselves out of that hole, that endless hole. And I think being able to stand back and really be critical of it, I think it gives us a sense of upliftment, that you can, maybe in your life, you can stand back and be critical of what's happening.
I'm happy to hear that, because I see the characters as people who are stuck, who are kind of stuck in loops and stuck in kind of childhood trauma, and are in situations that they can't see their way out of. And I really kind of only see one character who kind of is breaking out of it, and then we're not sure also. So I'm glad to hear that it doesn't leave a really heavy, depressing taste in people's mouth. But that's okay as a literary experience too, because some of my favorite books have made me weep.
Yeah, and I think, and that's what literature is, right? It's just this empathetic thing, and if it can make you feel such a charged emotion, then you have done your job as a writer.
Yeah, I hope so.
And I felt that it's so funny when reading your book. There's these character sketches. It feels like character sketches, right? But it's so alternative from a normal short story, because we come away with not a feeling of completion. Yeah. Why did you do that?
They're more snapshots.
Yeah.
They came out that way. I don't know. There's something. I like experiments in structure. Not always. Some of my favorite books have very traditional structures, but I like ambiguity, and I like I like structures that surprise me, and but not for their own sake, right? So I feel like the structures of these things that feel kind of maybe more like snapshots than the traditional kind of inverted checkmark epiphany, is because that is what is appropriate to the story of these people who see some event as the ruin of their lives, when really the problem is that they aren't. It's a cliche to say this, but the answer to everything is love, and you can heal many, many wounds by being a loving person. And my characters most of them are people who kind of sink in on something that they think is irreparable, when when really the answer to everything is having a loving heart, and it's this kind of downward spiral that they see as tied to one event, but is really a mindset. I'd say probably all of them, though maybe perhaps not the second story, because it's just a slightly different story, but is that my main characters see this moment where they feel like they've lost what they had, and their confidence starts to go, and then they feel like everything crumbles out of this one moment. Like they're afraid they're losing something, and therefore they've already lost, right? So that inability to kind of relax into life is also something that I think my characters share.
I think, yeah, it's so funny how you said you think you've lost something and now you're crumbling, even though you're not sure, right? I think and you remain in that holding pattern, and I feel like so many people are in holding patterns because of trauma, that they think they have lost something, but not really, right? The loss wasn't a loss. It was a way of like finding or redefining or moving past it and understanding. And the mind is so fascinating, how trauma like really like could hold us down forever.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they're moments that you don't think that will hold you down, but it do.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I just love how you are exploring this, but not in this sense of like, this is what it is. In this, you know, I think when so many books we read, they're like, oh, this character is traumatized. And then this is what led to their trauma, and this is how you resolve it. But this is just like, we're moving through the way of their life. We're just moving through it. And I like that we can define it on our own, which is important, which leads to the dialogue and everything like that, which was really beautiful. Tell us about. We're all loving. We're like, I know. I like this. So, in so much of your book, as you were saying, your characters are biracial. There's this ambiguity that's happening, and you write about racial ambiguity quite a bit. Can you tell us like what has created this lens for you?
Oh, you know, that's. I like that question.
Yeah.
And this might be my obsession with ambiguity as well. It might be the source of my obsession with ambiguity in general, is that I'm just a very racially ambiguous person. And in the sense of the way that we define things in the United States, I get mixed messages, right? So in the United States, if you are traditionally, if you are mixed race at all, if you have more than a very small amount of non-white blood, then you are not white, right? But people also call me white, so it's just confusing, right? And the other thing about it is that people get upset, so that it's just a space I've always had to live in, and there are ways that absolutely it is an advantage, and being white-like gives a person white privilege, and there are also ways that that it's tricky to navigate in terms of, for example, as a writer, people kind of don't know what to do with me, right? That it's just it just doesn't fall into categories the way that people are accustomed to. So it is something that I don't know if I wish for anything different, because it's the only thing I know, you know, but it is absolutely the place I come from, right? Is to be somebody who's just very ambiguous.
You published your book with Independent Small Press.
Yes.
Can you tell us why you did that?
Because they took it.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I sent it to 3 large small presses. Like St. Martin's and a couple of others that I don't remember right now. And 3 editors were looking at it, and I just thought, well, someone will take it. This is great. You know, this is pretty soon after my first after my first book was published, and then 6 months later, I was like, no one's answered. And I went back, and all 3 of them had left their jobs. Oh, shit. And so then it was just a lot of knocking on doors, and I wasn't as I didn't go as hard and fast as I did when I was younger. I just kind of took my time looking for a press, and I finally found Paloma, and I'm so happy with them. They basically let me be who I want to be, and they let me have this cover, and she looks like me, and it's kind of nuts. It's just crazy. You know, they've been fantastic with me, so I'm very happy that I came across them.
And what you're saying is it just speaks to the power of small presses, right? They're printing the things that they want to print. They're giving writers like just voices, right? And the other thing is that they're not trying to pigeonhole your identity.
Yes.
Which is really important and very beautiful. And this is why we must support small presses.
Thank you. Diversity is important because diversity in literature is important because human beings are important, and because there's so many interesting stories to be told.
And lastly, you have the final word.
Oh, I have the final word? Gosh, what should I say? Well, I'm really excited that I got to do this. I think that Leslie Ann is doing fantastic things for literature. It's really exciting to see my dear friend on fire like this, and bringing such interesting work to life. And I'm very fortunate that I got to get this book out, and that I get to talk about it with my dear friend.
Lara Stapleton, thank you so much for joining Bronco Book Lover. It was a pleasure talking to you. My friend!